Growing up in northern Michigan, I lived on 5,000 acres of land, a sprawling mix of farm and ranch that bordered dense state land. For miles, all you could see was endless stretches of forest and pasture. It was isolated, wild, and untouched. It didn't take much to toughen us up, and it would take even more to spook us. We were hunters, fishermen, and survivalists, men and women hardened by the wilderness. I was the only girl raised as a tomboy, and it's no different now. My uncle was the type of man who could stare death in the face without flinching. He was 6'4", built like a wrestler, a seasoned NCO, in a prominent Special Forces division of the U.S. Navy. Survival tactics were second nature to him. Nothing rattled him. He had seen the worst and lived through it, time and time again. But that all changed one autumn evening during deer season. It was the first time I had ever seen him shaken. He came through the front door, his face pale, eyes wide with terror. My uncle, the man who had stared down combat, was trembling, tears running down his face. "I saw something in the woods," he stammered. His voice cracked. Something I thought I'd never hear. Bigfoot mixed with a wolf. It didn't make sense. Bigfoot? Wolves were something that we had plenty of, but what he was describing sounded impossible. My grandmother tried to calm him down, but he couldn't explain further. He just kept repeating the same words, over and over. That's when my grandfather was called. The men in our family gathered, my dad, a few cousins, and my uncle, who was still terrified, but unwilling to be labeled a coward. They armed themselves with shotguns, loaded up the horses, and saddled up to leave. Their faces were grim, taut with a seriousness I had never seen before. The woods were dangerous, sure, but this was something else entirely. My grandmother told me to stay inside, to not leave the house for any reason. Her voice was sharp. Her warning was more like a command. And so I stayed inside, but I couldn't shake the growing unease. As dusk settled in and the sun dipped beneath the horizon, I realized they had been gone far longer than usual. When they returned, it wasn't with the usual laughter or joking. They were silent, their faces drawn and weary, eyes haunted, but they didn't speak of what had happened. The weight of their presence was enough to send a chill through me. At dinner, my dad set down the rules like iron. No more playing outside alone. No more wandering to the barns by myself. If I was out there, my grandfather had to be with me. I remember feeling that sting of frustration, the crushing weight of lost freedom, but I obeyed. I knew something had changed, something I couldn't understand yet. The next morning, my dad and grandfather took me out back and taught me how to shoot. I was a child, but I can sense the gravity of the moment. They never said why, but I knew it wasn't just for practice. Over the next few nights, I overheard their hushed conversations. They had found something, tracks, bigger than any wolf, any dog, something far larger, almost human-like, yet unmistakably animal. The footprints had appeared near where my uncle had seen the creature, but the thing that chilled me to the bone were the claw marks, 8 feet up a tree. No bear could have done that. It wasn't just one tree either. There were claw marks on multiple trees across the property, and that wasn't the worst of it. That winter, cattle started turning up mutilated. We'd find them scattered across the pastures, gutted in ways no natural predator would do. The wounds were cleaned, nearly surgical, as though something knew exactly where to strike. The tracks, those same wolf-like prints, were found near every single carcass. We lost 30 to 40 cattle that winter, and the fear in my family grew each day. This wasn't the work of coyotes. Something else was out there, something much worse. But it wasn't just the cattle that suffered. My uncle did too. I can't help but believe that whatever he saw out there in the woods changed him. It ate away at him, twisted him into something he wasn't. He had served multiple tours in the Middle East, faced the horrors of Desert Storm and the OIF, but none of that had broken him. But this thing in the woods, it did. He went from a man who never touched a bottle to someone who was rarely seen without a bottle in his hand. His eyes grew hollow and haunted, and the more he drank, the worse he became. He started seeing things, hearing things. The man who once laughed in the face of danger never went near those woods ever again. He stopped hunting. He stopped coming home for family visits. And 2 years later, when my father passed away, he didn't even show up for the funeral. It was heartbreaking to see my uncle deteriorate the way that he did. He was a shell of the man he once was. I truly believe he saw something that day in those woods, and I believe that whatever it was, it killed him slowly, over time, until there was nothing left but the fear it had instilled in him. That terror consumed him. I can't shake the feeling that whatever is out there, whatever he saw, is still waiting in the trees, in those woods, and it hasn't forgotten who he was.